You ever have one of those days, or maybe one of those weeks, where something just feels off? You can't quite explain it, but there's this feeling of dissatisfaction. Well, we're going to dive into a philosophy that starts with that exact feeling, and trust me, it ends up in a place that might completely change how you see reality itself. So it all kicks off with this very human, very relatable question. Somebody is just not enjoying life. Even something as simple and wonderful as eating has lost all its flavor. Everything just feels wrong. And I think we've all been there, right? When something you used to love just loses its spark.
And this was the teacher's answer. Now, let's be honest. On the surface, that sounds a little out there, maybe even dismissive. It's all a dream? How in the world does that help someone who's feeling real pain? But stick with me, because this one single idea, it's the key to the entire puzzle. Let's break down what it actually means.
Okay, so to get our heads around this whole reality is a dream thing, we first have to look at how our day-to-day reality is actually built. And we're going to start with something simple. Why do we like the things we like? The answer is this incredibly powerful process that shapes our entire world, usually without us even noticing. The big idea here is called conditioning. The original term, shunshi, has this beautiful meaning. It's like perfuming. Imagine a scent slowly, subtly filling a room until it's just everywhere. In the exact same way, our experiences, our culture, our habits, they slowly train us. They perfume us into believing that some things are just naturally good and other things are just naturally bad. But that's not really how it works.
Let's take a perfect example. Sichuan peppercorns. For someone who grew up with that food, that numbing, tingling spice is pure happiness. It's delicious. But for an outsider trying it for the first time, that exact same sensation is often just pain. It's unpleasant. Now, the peppercorn didn't change. The only thing that's different is the conditioning of the person eating it.
And this whole process starts the moment we're born. A newborn baby will pretty much always reject super sour or spicy flavors. It's not something we're born loving. That preference has to be learned. It has to be trained into us over years and years. Our palate is basically a blank slate, and experience is the one doing all the writing.
Or think about this one, Western cheese and stinky tofu. When you boil it all down, what are they? They're both just fermented protein. That's it. But depending on where you grew up, one is an absolute delicacy and the other might be totally repulsive. The only real difference there is your cultural conditioning.
So here it is, the big takeaway from this section. Our entire system of judgment, what's good, what's bad, what's beautiful, what's ugly, it's not based on some objective truth out there in the world. It's a program that's been installed in us since we were kids. We're not actually reacting to the world, we're reacting to our training about the world. Okay, so we've seen how conditioning shapes our taste. Now, let's zoom out. What if that same principle applies to our entire experience of reality? This is where things get really, really interesting. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream where you're just running and running, maybe being chased? And you wake up and your heart is pounding, you're out of breath, you feel genuinely exhausted, but you haven't moved a single inch. You're still just lying in bed. How is that possible? Well, this is the paradox of a dream, isn't it? The events themselves aren't physically real. You didn't actually run anywhere, but the feelings they create, the fear, the joy, the exhaustion, those are 100% real to your mind and your body. The source material even points out that someone who has a nightmare about drowning can wake up with a very real, very lasting fear of water. The dream wasn't real, but the psychological scar it left? Absolutely. And this quote right here, it frames our waking life in exactly the same way. It's suggesting that what we call reality is just a very, very convincing and persistent dream. And as long as we're in it, as long as we believe it's totally real, we're going to feel all the joy and all the sorrow that we create inside of it. It's like we're actors in a play who have completely forgotten we're on a stage.
Okay, that's all pretty mind-bending. But so what? If life is a dream and our feelings are just conditioning, what are we supposed to do with that? Well, this isn't just some abstract idea. It's actually a super practical guide for changing the way we experience our own lives.
So it really comes down to two different mindsets. The first is our default mode, real existence. This is where we see the world as solid, fixed, and unchangeable. What you feel is what is real. And honestly, this usually leads to suffering. The alternative is illusory existence, seeing the world as dreamlike, flexible, and changeable, where what you feel is just a temporary state. And that leads to freedom.
So the whole game is to retrain our perception. It's about making a conscious choice to shift from seeing the world and our feelings as solid rock to seeing them as flowing water, like a dream.
So how do we actually do this? Well, we use conditioning on ourselves, but in reverse. First, you start to redefine things. As you go through your day, you consciously label your experiences and feelings as dreamlike or illusionary. Then you condition this new perspective through repetition. You just keep doing it. And over time, just like any other habit, this practice will literally transform your perception from rigid to flexible.
And how long does something like this take? You might be surprised. The source suggests that with focused, dedicated practice, this new way of seeing can start to become a habit in as little as 21 days. It's pretty amazing, right? It just shows how powerful we are in literally changing our own minds.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought. If our reality really is as malleable and as flexible as a dream, that totally changes the game. It shifts us from being passive victims of circumstance to being active creators. If this is all a dream, then you're not just the dreamer, you're the director. So the only real question left is, what kind of dream are you going to create?